Don't mind the Godzilla vs. Kong shirt. I didn't want to put a Monarch shirt back on. I was wearing one earlier and then I switched to the GVK shirt because it was cold and I don't want to switch back. What's up, everybody? Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Monarch Legacy of Monsters predictions video. That's right, we are going to be trying to predict what happens in episode 6 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Terrifying Miracles. That's the title. Alright, it's the mid-season, so before I even begin to predict what's going to happen in this next episode, let me try and predict a bit of this season arc. And as I said in my recent review for episode 5, I think Hiroshi's map with all the squiggles on it, I think Hiroshi is using satellites to track the movements of the Ion Dragon. I think the Ion Dragon is going to be the big bad of the season, and I think it has been nesting in the USS Loden. I think that the people who were strung up to the walls are there for food, much like in Godzilla 98 when he puts all the fish in the subways to feed the babies. I think that there are baby monsters running around that thing. That's what causes the slime on the inside. That's, for instance, why it was able to track them even though it was on the outside. Maybe it has babies in there reporting to them. That's just my big conspiracy theories, because how'd the slime get inside? It really didn't make sense to me. And also, what killed all of the crew members on the inside of the ship without destroying the ship? I think the Ion Dragon dragged up the Loden from the bottom of the ocean. I don't think that's what sunk the Loden. I think it dragged it up from the bottom of the ocean and nested in it because it had a big radiation reading to it, because it was attacked by another Titan. I do think we'll probably see the sinking of the USS Loden in maybe the season finale. It feels weird to introduce the idea of the Loden in this show, especially when it was so prevalent in Kong Skull Island, and then to not show how it sank. So I think that is gonna probably be brought up in this show, and I also think that as a result of that, it's gonna be treated a bit like Camazotz, or for instance Gauss, where there's gonna be like a legion of little baby monsters that Godzilla will take on in an episode. Maybe episode 9, Godzilla will take on a bunch of baby monsters. He'll beat them all up, blow them up with his atomic breath, and then he'll fight the big one in the finale. The big one was the one we saw in episode 2, all grown up now. I also think all those pings on Hiroshi's map, I think they're either pinging Titan locations or Hollow Earth locations, and I do think this show is eventually building to the Hollow Earth. I think the Hollow Earth is going to be the thing. I think that portal we saw in Alaska, that's a Hollow Earth portal almost certainly. I think the Ion Dragon is going to be swimming around inside of the lights in that thing. I think he might even be what's causing them. Obviously, that's where in the trailer Godzilla fights the Ion Dragon, and I actually think they're gonna go through it and fight on the other side of it in the Hollow Earth. I think that maybe our characters will take a sphere to get there, because we see there's this sphere that is in the trailer as well that it looks like drops into a portal of some sort, so I think it must be a Hollow Earth portal. Does that mean our characters are gonna get stranded in the Hollow Earth in this show? I don't think so. I don't think they are, but I do think they might go there. As far as like what Hiroshi wants, does he want to kill the Titans? Is he on the same side as Shaw, where it's like Monarch needs to do something? The world is on fire. Now is the time to do something. I think it could be. I think Hiroshi may just be trying to find a way to either plug the Hollow Earth holes or kill the Ion Dragon who is creating them. I think that could very well be what the conflict of the season reveals itself to be. I think it's a little weird that we're 6 episodes deep at this point and we still don't even know what the plot of the show is. Like, where are we building towards? We don't know what the end game is headed towards yet. It's weird. I think that's gonna be what's going on. I think Hiroshi is gonna be a good guy, and that's gonna be my guess. As far as like what's going on with Shaw, it's been heavily implied in multiple episodes now, and with Tim stating that there was an experiment gone wrong, you can bet your ass that there was an experiment gone wrong. So I think Shaw was probably climbing in one of those Hollow Earth tubes that they tried to build, one of those spheres, and then they maybe tried to drop him into Hollow Earth and it blew up and killed everybody but him, and he got all radiated and his body got all mutated and whatever, and so he ages slowly. I think that could also be a reveal. Basically, I think the whole thing with Shaw is gonna be he's just a dude who wants to kill the Titans. He believes in the Hollow Earth. He believes in Randa's theories. Like, he's a guy who was with Randa long enough to know that this guy's theories, while some of them are wildly off base, a lot of them are on point. And I think Shaw is probably gonna be like, hey, I'm here to just kill the monsters, to just do the dirty work that Monarch is not willing to do. And I don't think he's gonna be a bad guy, but I do think he's gonna be trying to do that in the past and getting people killed as a result, which eventually puts him in Monarch Secure Asset Management. The other reason I think that is because this show does a really good thing where they introduce an idea where you're like, ooh, that's bad, and then later they're like, well, here's an alternate perspective on why it might not be as bad as you think. Or they do, oh, here's a thing that you think is good, and then you find out, well, there is a bad side to it as well. I think that is such a smart thing the show does, and the fact that we have not seen a counterpoint to why they put Shaw away yet, I think it's because the guy's gonna be irresponsible in how he tries to take on the Titans. As far as what happens in this next episode, your guess is as good as mine. I feel like we don't really have much to go on. Unlike with the last predictions video, I don't have a plot synopsis yet, but what I do have is a picture from the next episode, and it's a picture of Keiko and Shaw in the past, so I have a bit of an idea of where we're headed. Now that we've reached this big climactic point with the modern storyline where May has betrayed our characters, it could be a very interesting point to do a full flashback episode where we are entirely in the past for a full episode. That being said, because we still don't really know what the plot of the show is other than finding Hiroshi, like we don't know where we're building other than Africa, I think that they are gonna need to return to the present day characters because you need to kick off the plot. You need to get people really hooked for the second half of the season, so I think that this episode might be a bit of a reboot, where you're reintroduced to the past characters, you're kind of resituated with the present characters, and then things are gonna hit some sort of dramatic point at the end of the episode that set up wherever the show goes from here, probably more clearly than we have seen previously. I'm also gonna guess that the gangs are gonna get shuffled around at the end of this episode, as I'll talk about in a little bit. Given how slow the last two episodes of this show were, I think the showrunners are gonna know they've probably got a lot of viewers who are like, I don't think I'm gonna continue with this show. Like, they better have a good episode coming up. So I think they're gonna try and rehook viewers with an explosive episode. That's gonna be my guess, and I think this episode's gonna be big. I think the show desperately needs a change of pace, and so I'm expecting to see the rise of the Titans, and by that I mean specifically I think we're gonna see Godzilla. I think it'll be a good episode for Godzilla, because I think he's gonna probably appear in the past and the present, and I think I can support that, I think. If I had to guess what we're doing in the past, I think we're gonna jump to 1956 because we jumped 2 years, and now another 2 years. It would make sense to continue that pattern. Maybe we don't. Maybe we pick up back in 54 as well. I don't know, but I'm gonna think we're gonna jump to 56. I think we're gonna see that Randa has become very preoccupied with leading Monarch. Maybe it's gone to his head a little bit and he's kind of becoming egotistical about it. Either way, I think he's gonna be so invested in his work that he has estranged himself from Shaw, specifically. I think him and Shaw, the strain in their relationship is going to start here. And I also think it must happen with Keiko, because I'm not giving up on the love plot. I think that Shaw and Keiko are gonna have a love triangle, which I don't want to see. I don't need it, because they have a thread of it in the first episode, and because the newest trailer for the show showed the two of them rubbing heads, and so it's like, okay, here we go. Shaw clearly has feelings for her as well, like you saw it in the last episode, the way he's looking at her in that tape, like he's mourning her. But is he mourning her because she's dead, or is it because he really loved her and then she died? So I think this is going to be the love triangle episode, which is not a plot line I like. I never like a love triangle. There's very rare instances where I think it's done well. Okay, so like I said, the photo I've currently seen for this episode, it features Shaw and Keiko at some party. I don't know what the party is, but they're dressed really nicely, and I'm going to assume that this is a military party that Shaw is being promoted at as a result of the Castle Bravo situation, as a result of his involvement with Monarch. He's being promoted. I think it's going to be a big deal, and I think he's going to want Keiko by his side because she's kind of his best friend, and I really like that, and I think he's going to really like her a lot more than just like. I think he's going to like her, as middle schoolers might say. I think that's where the love plot will be developed, is at this party. And I think you're going to see Keiko being torn between her feelings for Randa and her feelings for Shaw, and I think ultimately they'll probably share one kiss. If I had to guess, it'll probably be on that dock, and then maybe afterwards she'll just decide that ultimately she's better with Randa. If they really wanted to pull the rug out from the viewer, which I hope they don't do, they could reveal that Hiroshi is Shaw's kid, it's not Randa's kid. I don't think they're gonna do that. I think it will be Randa's biological son, but they could pull the rug out from under us and be like, actually, he's Grandpa Shaw, not Uncle Shaw. This also is gonna be where in the trailer it looks like Godzilla reappears, so Godzilla's gonna show up. I'm gonna say it with 100% certainty. Godzilla will be in the next episode. What is he doing there, though? I think Godzilla's gonna swim up next to this dock, which makes me question, did they do something to lure him out of the water, or was he just mega conveniently in the area at the right time to be seen by these two? They can't walk away with like definitive proof that Godzilla's still out there, can they? Like, I don't think they can. Serizawa in Godzilla 2014 makes it seem like the last time Godzilla was ever seen by anybody that was specifically reported and confirmed was in 1954, which makes you think you can have unconfirmed sightings where people are like, hey, Godzilla did pop up, but they have no proof of it. That would be an interesting way to go with the show, where Shaw's like, oh my god, guys, he's not dead. He goes back to his military party, let's say, and is like, Godzilla's not dead, and nobody believes him, which maybe puts Monarch on strain with the military, where they're like, these guys are kind of nutty. And that could eventually lead to the underfunding of Monarch we saw in Kong Skull Island. Jumping back to the present with our current day characters, I think you're going to see that Shaw has sown the seeds of doubt within Monarch. And I think Tim listened and is going to be considering everything Shaw had to say. I mean, Tim was clearly listening carefully, and it seemed that some of the things Shaw was saying struck a nerve with the guy. I think he's going to be very conflicted throughout the episode, and I think Tim's going to have a lot more to do in this episode. And I think you're going to see he's going to be wondering, like, what do I do here? I think he's going to be debating if he should team up with Shaw, or if they can find a way to work together. Like, is there a mutual ground between the two? And ultimately, I think there will be, and I think that Tim will decide to act on it. Maybe set up a plan to get Shaw freed, or maybe it's just going to be a matter of Tim being like, just come with me. I'm personally taking responsibility for you. You're with me. Meanwhile, I think Duval is going to be communicating with May throughout the episode, and I think basically she's just going to be like, hey, May, stick to the plan. I'm coming to you. I'm going to follow in your footsteps. And May's going to be like, well, we're headed to Africa. Meet us there. Verdugo, I think, will be kind of out of the episode, because I'm going to assume she goes back to Virginia to deal with the gamma burst. That seems like a more pressing matter than just Shaw. Or maybe she's going to head to Africa as well. Or maybe, oh, here's an idea. Maybe there will be a gamma burst in Africa that will draw Verdugo away, giving Tim an opportunity to sneak Shaw away. And the gamma burst in Africa could be the Ion Dragon. Maybe they think it's Hiroshi. Maybe it's Hiroshi following the Ion Dragon, or maybe Hiroshi detonates something to bring the Ion Dragon to the surface. I don't know. I think May will follow the instructions and stick to the mission, and they will head to Africa. And I think Kate and Kentaro will go there in search of Hiroshi, and they will be followed by Duval and Tim without being aware of it. Unbeknownst to the Randa kids, this is actually now Monarch's plan that they're following through with, and Monarch is going to intercept them in Africa, and that's where we're going to get to the bottom of what the actual plot of the show is. And I do expect that this episode is going to try and make the betrayal real sour by building out and unpacking what I'm suspecting is a love triangle brewing between Kate, May, and Kentaro, which is so weird because two of those people are related. I think it's always weird when you got like siblings gunning for the same person, especially when that person has previously been with one of those siblings. Although I don't think Kentaro will necessarily still be into May, I still think it's going to be awkward to see a love plot between May and Kate developed, but I actually think it will be based on how much they are so like touchy in the last episodes. And I think that May will kind of mend the relationships with both Kentaro and build the relationship with Kate, so that the defeat can be way more crushing whenever they find out May double-crossed them, which I think probably will happen at the end of the next episode. If they travel to Africa, I think everybody's going to be reunited. I mean, they're going to travel to Africa. It's just a question of, are they going to get there in the next episode, or is it going to be like the episode's going to end with them heading to Africa? Either way, whenever people arrive in Africa, I think this is going to be a big mix-em-up where the gang is going to get really shuffled. Whenever they travel to Africa, I think all the characters will converge. Tim and Duval will take Shaw probably with them to Africa, because he seems to be there in the trailers. He's in the desert. I think Shaw will show up in Africa with them, and I think he's going to be revealed to be working now with a subgroup of Monarch, and now this group that he has been putting together with like Tim and Duval maybe, these guys are going to be trying to prove the existence of the Hollow Earth and trying to prove that the Titans are coming and are a threat. Everyone will converge at the same time at the same place, and this will be the episode where we finally spot Hiroshi in the flesh for the first time, where he's standing with that weird spherical device. Maybe he detonates it and it awakens Godzilla, because obviously we know Godzilla also shows up in the desert, and this is what causes Godzilla to surface, and maybe Hiroshi just does that as a distraction so that he can escape, because he is not yet ready to be caught. He can board a helicopter and fly away. I think whenever Hiroshi shows up, that will be when we learn that Shaw and Hiroshi don't like each other. There was a big falling out. It was brutal, and I think this is going to be in front of the Randa kids, where they're like, oh my god, Shaw and our dad do not get along. And now we'll also learn at the same time, May set them up. May's the one who called Monarch here in the first place, and now Shaw is working with Monarch, and I think it's going to be this big thing where Hiroshi's not working with Monarch anymore. He's defected. Now Shaw's back with Monarch, or at least a subset of Monarch. Now May has totally sold them out, and it's going to be like, oh my god, Kate Kate and Kentaro are going to get totally isolated. I think that May will finally get out and have the option to go home. I think she'll probably take it before having a change of heart and reuniting with them in another episode. And I think it's going to be this big mix-em-up where all the characters are going to get shuffled. May and Duval will probably become a team. Duval will take May and get her out of the action. Hiroshi's going to get away. Meanwhile, you've got Shaw, who's now working with a small subset of Monarch separate from Verdugo. I think in a later episode, Verdugo might join in with Shaw, but I don't think that'll happen yet. I think Verdugo's going to be off on her own. You got Shaw, who's now working with a subset of Monarch, and I think that hopefully, just because I want to see this trio, they're obviously sharing screen time in the trailer for the show, so I want to see this trio built out just because it's like 3 of my favorite characters. I'd love to see the only person Kate and Kentaro can trust is Tim, and so they have to go with Tim in order to get out of all of this. That's what I'm hoping to see. Would be fun because then you'd have double the Godzilla action. You'd have Godzilla stomping around the desert, but you'd also have Godzilla showing up at a dock. What is he doing at that dock? I really hope that he's not just there. I hope it's like he has a reason to be there. I don't know when this will all occur, because I have for the longest time been thinking that this Godzilla in the desert is going to happen in episode 8, but they found out about Africa already. I don't think the show's going to waste time in getting to Africa. I think we're going to want to get there soon so we can get answers. I hope. I really don't want another episode where we just kind of meander around for a while being like, well, we got to get to the point. We got to go to Africa. I don't want that anymore. I want the show's plot to kind of pick up so that I know where we're headed, so that there's a hook to want to come back for the next episode, you know? Because I like the show, but I do feel like it's a little directionless at times. That's my big hopes for the season, and that's also my big hopes for this next episode. I know some people have teased this next episode's going to be a big one, so obviously Godzilla's going to show up, just a matter of where and when. Comment below and let me know what you guys think is going to happen in the next episode. How on point do you think I am? How off point do you think I am? I don't know. Comment below and let me know. Other than that, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so much for all the support I get in the Patreon, guys. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below. It goes a really long way towards making sure I can keep making videos like this for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.